Close your eyes. It's 1972, Northern California. You're cruising down Highway 101 near Santa Rosa, windows down, radio humming Credence. The air smells like pine and gasoline. Ahead, through the evening fog, you see her, a young woman in bell-bottoms. Thumb out, hoping for a ride. You might have passed a dozen like her that week. Hitchhiking wasn't just normal back then, it was a rite of passage, a symbol of trust, of freedom. But what if the car that did stop for her wasn't freedom? What if it was the last choice she'd ever make? Because between 72 and 73, 7 young women just like her, vibrant, full of tomorrows, vanished along these same misty roads. Gone without struggle, without witnesses, without logic. The FBI mapped their last steps, profiled their killer, hunted for decades, and still nothing. No notes, no demands, no grandstanding, just 7 lives erased. And a killer who dissolved into the California fog like he'd never existed at all. This isn't a campfire story. This is the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker murders, one of America's most intimate, unsolved nightmares. Tonight, we follow the road where their footprints end. These weren't headlines. They were heartbeat. Let's speak their names, not as victims, but as the vibrant souls they were. Kim Allen, 19. She'd just dropped off a friend that October night in 72. A dental assistant with a laugh that lit up rooms. Kim loved horses, dreamed of working with children. She waved goodbye and became the first to vanish into Santa Rosa's gathering darkness. Teresa Walsh, 19, worked the night shift at Round Table Pizza. Teresa was saving up for nursing school, the kind who'd sneak extra cheese onto your slice. Last seen in November 72, thumbing a ride to work in her blue pea coat. She never clocked in. Yvonne Weber, 18, disappeared walking home from a church dance in December. Honors student, played clarinet. Her mom kept her bed made for months, certain she'd return. Then came 73, a cruel spring. Carolyn Davis, 14, the baby of the group, skipped school one March morning, told her sister she was going on an adventure. Maureen Sterling, 20, aspiring artist, left her sketchbook open on a half-finished charcoal of redwoods. Julie Spears, 19, waitress at the Sizzler. Her boyfriend reported her missing when she didn't show for their movie date. Michelle Mitchell, 19, disappeared in June. Worked at a plant nursery, could make anything grow. All gone within 10 months. All under 21. The police called them hitchhikers. Families called them daughters. Friends called them the glue that held us together. They weren't reckless. This was Santa Rosa in the 70s, safe. Sleepy, where neighbors knew your name. Hitchhiking, as ordinary as riding a bike. But in the span of a single year, trust became a death sentence. And 7 bright lights flickered out on those fog-slicked roads because someone weaponized kindness. All right, let's step into the darkness. This is where the Santa Rosa case stops feeling like random tragedy and starts feeling deliberate, calculated, like following the footsteps of a ghost who left a map only he could read. Because when you lay out where these 7 young women vanished, where they were found, and how they were left, a terrifying picture emerges. This wasn't chaos. This was a blueprint, a killer's cold, meticulous signature. First, the hunting ground. Pin this in your mind, Sonoma County, California, 1972 to 1973. Specifically, the ribbons of asphalt known as Highway 101 and Highway 12. These weren't remote dirt tracks lost in the wilderness. These were lifelines, connecting towns, threading through the edges of Santa Rosa itself, busy enough for a hitchhiker to blend into the roadside scenery, isolated enough, especially at night, for something terrible to happen unseen. Every single one of the 7, Kim, Teresa, Yvonne, Carolyn, Maureen, Julie, Michelle, was last seen along these corridors. Every single one accepted a ride from a stranger. That was the trap. The first, fatal common thread. Then came the vanishing. No frantic phone calls. No abandoned purses ripped open on the shoulder of the road. No signs of a struggle witnessed by a passing motorist. One moment, they were there, hopeful, hand out. The next gone, snatched clean off the face of the earth. It was as if the car that stopped for them simply swallowed them whole. Police checked bus stations, train depots, friends' couches, runaway shelters. Nothing. Silence. That absence itself was the first chilling clue. Whatever happened, It happened fast, efficiently. This killer didn't give his victims time to scream. Weeks, sometimes months later. Discovery, but not in ditches beside the highway. Not dumped carelessly where they might be quickly spotted. No, they were placed. Carefully, deliberately, hidden away in the wooded areas just off those main arteries. Think about that. He drove them away from the public eye, deep into the embrace of places like Annandale State Park or the tangled woods near rural Sebastopol. Places he clearly knew well. Places shrouded in fog and shadow. Places where discovery wasn't guaranteed, but perhaps expected. Eventually? And here's the detail that truly chills the blood. How they were found. This wasn't the aftermath of a frenzied, wild attack. There were no signs of a desperate fight for life. No defensive wounds clawed into the killer's skin. No torn clothing suggesting a violent struggle. Instead, the reports describe something profoundly unsettling. They were posed, almost gently, laid out, fully clothed, their bodies arranged with a disturbing semblance of peace or respect, as if the killer took a moment after the act to compose the scene, to present them. It speaks of a terrifying control, a complete domination not just over the victim, but over the aftermath. He wasn't panicked. He was methodical. He was taking his time. The cause of death? Strangulation. Silent, personal, requiring close contact. Hands on skin, looking into their eyes. This wasn't impersonal gunfire from a distance. This was intimate. This was hands-on murder. It required strength. Yes, but more than that, it required a cold resolve to hold on, to keep squeezing. Long after the struggle stopped, it speaks to a killer who needed that control, that feeling of extinguishing life directly. Someone who derived something from that awful proximity. Then the apples. It's the detail that lodges in your brain and refuses to leave. Found beside the body of one of the victims, sources often point to Teresa Walsh. Those specifics get hazy over time. A single, ordinary apple, just placed there, not thrown, not bitten, not used as a weapon, just set beside her, like an offering, or a signature. Why? Why an apple? Was it a taunt? A sick joke only the killer understood? The biblical symbol of temptation and the fall? Was he marking her as the forbidden fruit he had taken? Or was it something simpler, darker? An apology? A twisted token of remorse left by someone compartmentalizing their own monstrousness? Maybe it was a ritualistic symbol, a calling card for some obscure belief system lost to time. Or perhaps, most chillingly, it was just for him, a personal ritual, a habit, a compulsion he couldn't suppress, a tiny, mundane object transformed into an icon of pure dread because of where it was found. And why? The fact that it only appeared definitively with one victim makes it more unnerving, not less. Was it a signature he intended to use every time, but got interrupted? Did he only feel compelled to leave it for Teresa? Was it a message specifically meant for the police? Or for someone else? Or was it simply a moment of strange whimsy from a profoundly disturbed mind? The lack of a clear pattern around the apple only deepens its mystery. It's a single, bizarre brushstroke on an already horrifying canvas. Put it all together, and the profile starts to solidify, not through witness descriptions, but through actions. The geography screams local knowledge. This killer knew these backroads, these wooded pull-offs, these fog-drenched valleys like the back of his hand. He knew where a car wouldn't be noticed pulling off. He knew where a body could lie hidden for weeks. He wasn't passing through. He belonged here. He was a ghost haunting familiar territory. The method, the swift snatch. The efficient strangulation. The careful posing, screams confidence. Practice. Even. This wasn't his first violent act. Even if it might have been his first murder. He operated with a terrifying assurance. He didn't leave frantic clues. He didn't take trophies that we know of. He didn't mutilate. He subdued. He killed. He posed. He left. Clean. Controlled. Almost clinical. And the posing, the clothing left undisturbed, the potential offering of the apple, it hints at something beyond mere rage. It hints at ritual, at a specific fantasy being played out, at a need for order amidst the chaos he created. He wasn't just killing. He was staging. He was creating a tableau only he fully understood. He was leaving his mark, not with spray paint, but with the arrangement of the dead. This was the blueprint. Hitchhikers. Highways 101 and 12. Strangulation. Wooded dumping grounds. Posed bodies. No struggle. The eerie possibility of a token, an apple. It paints the picture of a killer who wasn't a monster raging in the night. He was something far more dangerous, a planner, a predator who blended in, a man who looked ordinary, who drove ordinary roads, who understood the rhythms of Santa Rosa life so well he could exploit its trust. The trust symbolized by a raised thumb on a foggy highway and turn it into a death warrant. He moved like a shadow along those well-traveled roads, invisible in plain sight. He wasn't a phantom. He was your neighbor, the guy who pumped your gas, the quiet man who waved hello. He knew these roads like a ghost because for the 7 young women who trusted a stranger's ride, he was the ghost waiting in the driver's seat. And his blueprint remains, decades later, a map to a nightmare we still can't fully decipher. Picture the Santa Rosa Police Department in late 1973. 7 young women gone. 7 families screaming for answers. 7 bodies found posed like broken dolls in the woods. The pressure was a physical thing, thick, suffocating, like the very fog that hid their killer. This wasn't just another case. This was an epidemic of vanishing. And the cops? They were scrambling, running on bad coffee, sleepless nights, and the gnawing fear that another girl would disappear before they could stop it. The first break seemed to fall right into their laps. Witnesses, people who'd seen something. Not much, but fragments. A pattern emerged, a vehicle. Not a flashy sports car or a beat-up junker. A white van, unremarkable, common, the kind you'd see 100 times a day delivering bread or plumbing supplies. And inside, a man. That's all they ever really got. A man, seen offering rides near where the girls vanished. Descriptions were frustratingly vague, clean-cut. White, 30s, maybe brown hair. Ordinary, the kind of face that blends into a crowd 5 minutes after you see it. Police artists worked with witnesses, straining for details. The sketch they produced wasn't some monster with glaring eyes. It was average, bland, forgettable, exactly the kind of person who could slip through the cracks. But it was something, a direction, hope. They plastered that sketch everywhere. Newspapers, gas stations, post office bulletin boards. Have you seen this man? The phone started ringing. Tips flooded in, hundreds of them. Every sighting of a white van, every neighbor who acted weird, every bitter ex-husband with a temper. Detectives chased them all, down dusty back roads, into cramped apartments, across state lines. They followed leads until the leads dissolved into nothing. Exhaustion set in. The white van man was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in plain sight. Then, a jolt of electricity. A name emerged from the chaos, Fred Manali, a local guy. And he wasn't just some random name from a tip line. Manali had a history, a violent streak, assaults, a temper that scared people who knew him. And the clincher? He owned a white van. He fit the vague description. He knew the roads, the woods, the rhythms of Sonoma County. Detectives zeroed in. This felt right. This felt like the shadow they'd been chasing. The relief was palpable. Maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was ending. They brought him in, grilled him, searched his van, dug into his alibi for the nights those girls vanished. And that's where the hope hit a wall. A solid, immovable wall. However much they wanted it to be him, however much the pieces seemed to fit, Manali had answers. Or, more accurately, he had places he claimed to be, people who backed him up, however shakily, times that didn't quite align perfectly with the disappearances, creating just enough doubt. The physical evidence? It wasn't there. No fingerprints in the van tying him to a victim. No fibers. No hair. No confession wrung out in the interrogation room. The case against Fred Manali, built on desperation and circumstance, began to crumble. They couldn't make it stick. The prime suspect walked. And the white van? It faded back into the sea of ordinary traffic. Another dead end. The heaviness returned, thicker than before. Years turned into decades. The frantic energy of the 70s hunt cooled into a cold case file. Dust settled on boxes of reports and witness statements. The families aged. Some detectives retired. Some passed away. Santa Rosa changed. But the mystery of the 7 hitchhikers? It never went away. It lingered, a persistent ache in the town's memory. Then, in 2008, a spark, not from a dusty file, but from science, DNA, technology that didn't exist back when Kim Allen first vanished. Cold case investigators, armed with new tools, went back to the evidence. They re-examined something, maybe a scrap of clothing, maybe something else held carefully in storage all those years. And they got a hit, a match. Excitement exploded. After 35 years of silence, of dead ends, they had a name, a direct link to one of the victims. This was it, the break they'd waited for, the key to unlocking everything. Imagine the rush, telling the families. We found him. The headlines practically wrote themselves. Santa Rosa hitchhiker killer finally identified after decades. But the truth, when it came, was a cruel joke, a punch to the gut. The DNA didn't point to a ghost or a vanished suspect. It pointed to a man named Curtis Dean Anderson. And Anderson wasn't some free man hiding in plain sight. He was already behind bars, serving time for kidnapping and murdering another young woman in 2000. A monster, yes, but a monster whose known brutality seemed to fit the Santa Rosa pattern. Investigators dove deep. Was Anderson driving those Sonoma County roads in the early 70s? Could he be the one? Did they finally have the answer? The answer was no. A crushing, definitive no. Anderson was definitively linked by DNA to only one of the Santa Rosa victims, Maureen Sterling. Just one. For the other 6 girls? Nothing. No connection. No evidence placing Anderson near them, near the highways, near Santa Rosa at all during that terrifying year. He couldn't have killed Kim Allen, Teresa Walsh, Yvonne Weber, Carolyn Davis, Julie Spears, or Michelle Mitchell. Maureen Sterling's murder was likely a horrific, sickening coincidence, a different predator. Years later, mimicking an opportunity, or just awful, random chance, Anderson died in prison in 2008, taking any possible answers about Maureen with him. For the other 6 families, the DNA breakthrough wasn't closure. It was salt in a wound that had never healed. It slammed the door shut on the one path that seemed to lead somewhere. So where did that leave the hunt? Right back where it started. Square one. The white van man, still a sketch on faded paper. Fred Manali, a suspect who didn't pan out. Curtis Dean Anderson, a red herring who solved one murder, but deepened the mystery of 6 others. The case files remain open, but the trails are ice cold. Detectives still look, still hope some forgotten piece of evidence. A diary found in an attic, a deathbed confession from a relative, a fingerprint re-examined with tomorrow's technology might crack it open. But the hard truth is this: the hunt, for all its fury, all its science, all its decades of effort, hit wall after wall. The killer's blueprint was clear in the how and the where. But the who? That vanished just as completely as the girls did on those foggy roads. The clues didn't just lead nowhere. They led into a deeper, darker silence. The kind of silence where a monster could simply disappear. Not one monster, perhaps, but the chilling possibility of one who walked away clean, leaving behind not one mystery, but 7. 7 questions echoing across 50 years with no answers in sight. When the facts run out, the shadows rush in. That's what happened in Santa Rosa. Decades of dead ends. No arrest. No answers. It left a vacuum. And into that vacuum poured whispers. Theories. Some rooted in a sliver of possibility. Others spiraling into the darkest corners of imagination. This is the rabbit hole, where logic blurs, and fear paints its own pictures of the monster who got away. First up, the big name. Ted Bundy. He was active in the early 70s. He killed in California. He targeted young women. On the surface, it fits. The urge to pin these 7 murders on a known monster is powerful. Clean. Satisfying. But let's be clear, Bundy didn't work like this. His victims? Often bludgeoned, brutalized, left in chaotic scenes. He took trophies, jewelry, body parts. He revisited burial sites. He confessed to everything. Eventually, but never claimed Santa Rosa. Not once. The Santa Rosa victims? Strangled cleanly, posed respectfully, fully clothed. No trophies taken. No signs of sexual mutilation Bundy was known for. And crucially, Bundy's known movements and timelines don't neatly overlap with the tight 10-month spree in Sonoma County. Was Bundy capable? Absolutely. He was a horror. But the signature here? The careful, almost clinical posing? The lack of frenzy? It screams a different kind of predator. Bundy's evil was a wildfire. Santa Rosa's was a cold, sharp blade. The evidence just doesn't point his way. Then, the whispers got darker. Satanic cults. Rumors ignited like dry grass in the 70s. Fueled by genuine panic. People talked about symbols found scratched near a body. Or strange markings. Or even the apple. Could it be a ritual offering? A sacrifice to something ancient and evil? The idea of a group, not one man, lurking in those redwood forests. taking victims for some unspeakable ceremony. It captured a deep, primal fear. It explained the scale, 7 victims, and the seeming lack of a single, identifiable monster. But here's the hard truth. Investigators found 0 credible evidence. No linked cult activity in the area. No recovered ritual objects beyond vague rumors. No witnesses to gatherings or strange rites. No cryptic messages sent to police or press. The symbols reported, often ambiguous, could be random scratches, animal marks, anything. The apple? Isolated, unexplained, yes, but hardly proof of organized devil worship. The cult theory is terrifying, dramatic, and almost certainly fiction. It reflects the era's anxieties more than the killer's reality. Which brings us back to that apple, found beside Teresa Walsh. Just sitting there, a simple piece of fruit transformed into a bone-chilling enigma. If it wasn't Bundy, and it wasn't a cult, what did it mean? Theories flicker around it like candle flames. The taunt. Was it the killer's sick joke? A way of saying, I took the forbidden fruit, and I got away with it. Playing God, mocking the police, the families, the very idea of innocence? The apology. Could it be a twisted gesture of remorse? A pathetic offering left by someone disgusted by their own actions, yet unable to stop? A silent I'm sorry to a life extinguished? The biblical symbol, the apple in Eden. Temptation, sin, expulsion from paradise. Did the killer see himself as the serpent, offering a fatal ride? Or did he see the victim as Eve, somehow deserving her fate through the sin of hitchhiking? The personal ritual. Maybe it meant nothing to anyone but him. A compulsion, a habit, something he had to do to satisfy a dark need in his own mind, like a signature only he understood, a private punctuation mark on his crime. The mistake, or was it just a coincidence? An apple dropped by a hiker weeks earlier? A piece of trash blown near the body? The desperate human need to find meaning in randomness? The frustrating truth? We'll likely never know. The apple is a riddle with no answer key. It's the single most haunting, tangible piece of the puzzle, and it points nowhere concrete. It fuels the theories but solves nothing. So where does that leave us? Staring not at a shadowy cult or a famous serial killer, but perhaps the most unsettling possibility of all, the local secret. The man next door. The quiet one. The one nobody suspected. Because let's face the blueprint. The killer knew those highways, 101, 12, like his own backyard. Knew the precise wooded pull-offs. The fog patterns that provided cover. The rhythms of traffic and police patrols. He knew where to take them and where to leave them. This wasn't a drifter passing through. This was someone embedded. Someone who belonged. So, who walks unseen in a small community. The trucker? Constantly on those roads. His white rig could be the white van. He knew the routes. The lonely stretches. His comings and goings wouldn't raise an eyebrow. The cop? Unthinkable? Maybe. But who knows the back roads? The investigative patterns? The blind spots better? Who could move without suspicion? The ultimate betrayal of the badge. The family man? The guy with the wife? The kids? The steady job? The one everyone described as quiet, but nice. The perfect camouflage. The ultimate double life. A respectable mask hiding monstrous impulses. The local worker? A delivery driver. A park ranger. A construction worker on those highways. Someone whose presence on the road was normal. Expected. Someone who could watch. Learn. Wait. This theory isn't glamorous. It doesn't involve Satan or celebrities. It's chillingly mundane. It suggests the killer wasn't a phantom from afar, but a fixture. He shopped at the same markets, pumped gas at the same stations, maybe even nodded hello to the parents of the girls he killed. He walked among them. He breathed the same foggy air. And when the heat was on, when the sketch was everywhere, he just stopped, or got careful, or got lucky. He blended back into the fabric of Santa Rosa life. That's the deepest horror, isn't it? The idea that the answer wasn't hiding in the woods or roaring down the highway in a stolen car. It was hiding behind a familiar face, a face that looked ordinary, a face that belonged, someone who knew the secret fear gripping the town. The highway is a death trap because he was the one who made it true, and he took that secret, whatever it was, wherever he went, leaving behind only 7 lost girls, a cold case file, a phantom sketch, and the maddening echo of a single, silent question, who? The dark theories swirl, but the darkest possibility might be the simplest. The monster looked just like everybody else. Time doesn't heal all wounds. Some. It just hollows out, leaves them echoing. 5 decades have passed since that nightmare year in Santa Rosa. 5 decades of seasons changing, of redwoods growing taller, of highways widening. But for the families of Kim Allen, Teresa Walsh, Yvonne Weber, Carolyn Davis, Maureen Sterling, Julie Spears, and Michelle Mitchell, time froze in 1973. It's still frozen. They're not just mourning daughters, sisters, friends. They're trapped in a purgatory of why and who, with no way out. No grave brings peace when there's no justice. No memorial quiets the scream inside that asks, did he suffer? Did he pay? Is he still out there? They beg. Still, on anniversaries marked not by celebration, but by faded newspaper clippings and silent tears. They beg strangers, look at her picture. Remember her name. If you know anything, the desperation isn't loud anymore. It's a quiet, persistent hum of pain that never switches off. Detectives haven't forgotten either. Oh, the frantic urgency of the 70s hunt is gone. The command center's packed up long ago. But every few years, a new set of eyes. A detective inherits the cold case file. Thick binders, yellowed reports, witness statements typed on crackling paper. Maybe a faded Polaroid of that apple beside Teresa. They open it, they feel the weight, and they think, maybe now, maybe this new DNA technique, this advanced fingerprint analysis, this database nobody had back then, maybe this will be the key. They submit old evidence. They wait. Hope is a fragile, dangerous thing in a case this cold. It flickers, and too often, it dies. The answer isn't in the machine. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But here's the raw truth about the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker murders. Its shadow stretches far beyond 7 families or a police department's unsolved files. This case, it changed us. It rewrote the rules of being young, being free, being on the road in America. Before Santa Rosa, hitchhiking wasn't just common. It was normal. It was Jack Kerouac. It was freedom. It was trust in the open highway and the stranger behind the wheel. Kids did it to get to school. Hippies did it cross-country. It was a shared language of the road. Santa Rosa killed that. It didn't happen overnight. But the murders were a sledgehammer to the idea of innocent trust. Suddenly, that raised thumb wasn't a symbol of adventure. It was a target. Parents sat their daughters down, not with vague warnings, but with chilling specifics. Remember those girls in California? Don't you ever get in a car with someone you don't know? Fear became a passenger on every journey. The open road, once a promise, became a place of vulnerability. Hitchhiking didn't just decline. It became cultural shorthand for danger. A generation learned, kindness can kill. Trust can be a death sentence. The freedom of the 70s curdled into the caution of the decades that followed. Santa Rosa taught America to lock its car doors and drive on by. Which leaves us here, in the lingering quiet, staring at the core of the horror, the unanswered how. How did 7 murders happen in one quiet, unassuming Northern California town within 10 months, and leave nothing behind? No killer, no clear motive, no justice, not even a satisfying theory that ties it all together? It defies logic. It mocks the idea of order. In a community, someone sees something, someone knows something, patterns emerge, killers slip up. But Santa Rosa's killer? He didn't just vanish. He erased himself. Was he really that meticulous? That lucky? Or is the terrifying answer far more complex? Was it even one monster? That's the question that haunts the darkest corners of this case. The official line leans towards a single serial killer. The patterns are too strong, the method too similar. The highway hunter, the white van ghost. But what if the fog of Santa Rosa hid more than one predator? What if the time was the monster? The early 70s, a moment of cultural shift, of loosened roots, of young women asserting independence on roads suddenly filled with unseen threats. What if the posed bodies, the lack of struggle, the strangulation, what if that wasn't one man's signature, but simply the easiest, quietest way to kill? What if the apple was just a bizarre coincidence with one victim, unrelated to the others? What if Santa Rosa wasn't the hunting ground of a single, focused fiend, but a perfect storm? A convergence of opportunity where different monsters, unknown to each other, saw the same vulnerability, hitchhiking girls on lonely roads, and struck. It's a horrifying thought. It means evil wasn't an anomaly passing through. It means darkness was woven into the fabric of the place itself. In that specific moment, it means the fear wasn't just about a killer, but about the unsettling realization that safety was an illusion all along. that the monster might not have been a stranger in a white van, but several shadows walking familiar streets. That the evil wasn't hunted down because it wasn't one thing to hunt. This is why Santa Rosa lingers. It's not just unsolved. It's unresolvable in a way that scrapes against our need for answers. It stole innocence on a national scale. It left families stranded in grief without a destination. It handed us a terrifying riddle. One monster who vanished like smoke, or a darkness that simply lived there, in the fog, along those redwood-shrouded highways. Waiting for its moment, the shadow isn't just cast by the past. It's the shape of a mystery that refuses to die. And every time we drive down a lonely road, glance at a hitchhiker, if we even see one anymore, or wonder about the quiet neighbor, the shadow moves with us. It whispers the names of 7 young women who trusted the road, and the chilling question, who was waiting? Drive Highway 101 near Santa Rosa today. Roll your window down. What do you see? Sunlight dappling through ancient redwoods. Maybe mist clinging to the valleys in the early morning. Rolling hills painted gold in the afternoon. It's breathtaking, peaceful, normal. You won't see plaques. You won't find roadside memorials with faded flowers for Kim, Teresa, Yvonne, Carolyn, Maureen, Julie, or Michelle. The asphalt has been paved over countless times. The diners they might have eaten in are long gone or remodeled. Life, stubbornly, beautifully, moved on. The landscape offers no clues. No ghosts, just silence. A deep, California silence. But silence isn't empty. If you stop your car, if you turn off the engine and just listen, beneath the sigh of the wind through the redwood needles, beneath the distant hum of tires from the modern highway, you might hear it. A whisper, not with your ears, but with that older, deeper part of us that remembers. It carries 7 names, not shouted, not mourned aloud anymore, but carried on the current of time itself. Kim, Teresa, Yvonne, Carolyn, Maureen, Julie, Michelle. Their footprints may have vanished from this roadside gravel 50 years ago, but their absence carved a canyon in the world. It echoes. Their official case files? Dusty. Maybe. Stored in some cold archive. But stamped with one word that matters more than any other. Open. Not forgotten. Not abandoned. Just waiting. Waiting for a name. A fingerprint. A scrap of DNA. A conscience that finally cracks under the weight of a half-century secret. The hunt isn't over because the files are cold. It's suspended, held in that California fog. And the killer? He's not some mythical beast lurking in the woods. He's a shadow, maybe an old man now, frail, looking back on a life built on an unspeakable secret. Or maybe he died years ago, taking the truth to a grave marked only by a false name, or a blank headstone, a phantom of flesh and blood who walked away from 7 murders. That's the chilling reality. He could have been anyone. The mechanic who fixed your parents' car, the quiet teacher who retired without fanfare, the grandfather whose eyes held a darkness nobody questioned. He dissolved. He became part of the silence. So where does the road end? It doesn't. Not for the families trapped in that endless 1973. Not for the detectives who still feel the chill of those open files. And maybe not for you. Think about your own family history. That box of old letters in the attic you've never opened. That offhand story an elderly relative once told. About a bad time near Santa Rosa, quickly brushed aside. That strange confession mumbled by a dying grandfather, chalked up to delirium. That faded Polaroid tucked in a forgotten album, showing a white van parked where it shouldn't have been. Pieces of a puzzle nobody knew they were holding. Tiny fragments of truth, lost in attics, basements, and fading memories. That's where answers might lie. Not in a lab, but in someone's keepsake box. In a story finally told. If you have even a sliver of something, a name, a suspicion, a strange heirloom story, it's not too late to speak. For 7 women, silence has been their only epitaph for 50 years. Your voice could change that. But maybe, just maybe, this is one of those profound, unsettling mysteries destined to ride that California fog forever. A reminder carved into the landscape of our fears. Some roads, paved with trust and lined with towering beauty, lead straight into the heart of the dark. Not every story has a satisfying ending. Not every monster gets caught. Not every wound finds justice. Sometimes, the only thing left is the echo of a question mark. So what do we take from this quiet stretch of highway? Stay curious. Question the silences. Dig into the forgotten corners of history. Honor the lost by refusing to let their stories turn to dust. Stay safe. Trust your instincts. The world holds wonders. Yes, but it also holds shadows the Santa Rosa killer proved can walk unseen. The open road isn't innocent anymore. And a little caution isn't fear. It's wisdom paid for with a terrible price. And if you ever find yourself on a lonely stretch, twilight falling, and you see a hand raised by the roadside, pause. Look at that hopeful face. Remember not just a warning, but 7 vibrant, stolen lives, Kim's laugh, Teresa's nursing dream, Yvonne's clarinet, Carolyn's adventure, Maureen's sketchbook, Julie's movie date, Michelle's green thumb. Remember the 7 who trusted a stranger's smile and a promise of a ride and never came home. Their road ended in darkness. Let their memory be a flicker of light guiding yours safely forward. The highway stretches on. Drive carefully. Listen to the whispers in the wind,